Hello and welcome to the first episode of a podcast about something. Today is a podcast about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yours truly, I'm Eric Ladwig, and sitting beside me is...
Yeah, I'm Calvin Hauk, and we're going to dive right in here on some MCU info.
Now, what we wanted you to do is we wanted you to get to know us a little bit as we go through and do these kind of podcasts with you. We want you to know
where we stand. If I may say so myself, we are pretty great. So
we are. I mean, but you don't know that. We want you to know that by the end of this podcast. So what we decided to do was tell you a little bit about ourselves, how we got into this whole mess of being Marvel fans and hanging on every trailer, hanging on every movie, every opening release date.
See, I'm going to disagree with you there because I don't hang on to every trailer. I skip right over those because there's some problems with trailers, but we'll get into that later.
There's also some lifestyle differences between the two of us. You're a little more busy than I am.
Sometimes.
So anyway, I figured I would go first and share my background.
One of us was on time today and the other wasn't. That's all I'm going to say.
That's because I actually reported for work. Anyway, you might like my story about how I became a Marvel fan. You might hate me for it, but I never grew up a comic books fan.
It's not why I hate Eric. There's many other reasons.
There's many other reasons for that. I get it. But you're going to disagree with me. And you know what? That's okay, because that's why we're here. We want you to talk to us, communicate with us, let us know what you think, so we have more stuff to talk about with you guys. Anyway, the first Marvel movie, Cinematic Universe movie I ever saw was Iron Man 2. And contrary to popular thought, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. In fact, probably my favorite scene from that movie was the suit-up scene at the Monaco Grand Prix.
That was a good scene.
That was a good scene. So maybe even not the fight, if you didn't even like the fight, but even the suit-up scene where he had it in the suitcase, I think I was hooked from probably that point forward. And
that was probably his best outfit, I would say. His best suit, I think, was the one that came in the suitcase. I like the one that flies to him from Avengers, but I think the suitcase was better.
We can talk about costumes all the live long day. I mean, the one in Spider-Man: Homecoming was very similar looking in color, but
where he just didn't have to be in it. Yeah, that's a plus. Anytime you can be somewhere without actually having to be around those people, that's great.
If you could do that, you would. That's just
all the time.
Anyway, so moving on. I report back to Cal. I know he's very into this stuff, and I'm just like, hey, I saw Iron Man 2, and he's like, you need to go back, you need to watch Iron Man 1, then you need to watch Thor, and then we're going to go see Captain America when it comes out, and then I'm just like, so wait, why am I watching all these different ones? And you're like, well, it's all going to be connected in the end. We're going to go see the Avengers in about a year, and I got to tell you, it became one of the most anticipated movies of my life, and we'll talk about just why, but never grew up a comic book fan, and Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man 2 was the one that got me hooked, and of course, my buddy right here telling me about how to go back and watch it and get caught up to this little cinematic universe they've built, and really that everyone's trying to rip off now.
Did not tell you to watch The Incredible Hulk, because...
no, you told me I didn't need to.
Let's just all agree that it's probably not that important.
Probably, it really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't, unless you're planning on reintegrating Abomination at some point. But
or the leader.
Or the leader. Or the leader.
Come back.
There's a lot of speculation about that, but... Hey, Jeff... You're supposed to remind me about topic changes. I can't keep doing this off the top of my head, buddy.
Jeff, we're going to have to go back and take part of that out now.
We'll do it in post.
That's on you.
All right. So, myself, I was late to The Dark Knight, late to Iron Man. Obviously, that being 2008, Iron Man 2 in 2010. So, I really had no awareness that those two movies even existed. I know, how could you admit something like that, and you're doing a comic book movie podcast? Well, I mean, I can admit it because it's the truth. I like sports. I had a long-running job in sports for a long time, and it just wasn't even in my peripheral for the longest time. And so once I saw those movies, began to understand.
We expanded Eric's peripherals.
You did. I mean,
see a full 360 degrees now.
I can see all around. So
we got him some of those weird glasses that have like mirrors on the sides,
and even
can see
and even though The Dark Knight's not an MCU movie, it still ranks very, very high if I had to do a comprehensive superhero movie list, and even higher than some of my favorite Marvel movies. Dark Knight Rises probably not so much, but anyway, this being MCU, we'll move on. Cal, why don't you tell people about your nerddom?
That's what it is. My nerd kingdom here. So, yeah, I've been, you know this, I've been a superhero fan my entire life. I won't say comic book fan because where I came from, it wasn't always easy to get my hands on comic books. I came from a small town in northern Florida, which, you know, you get stuffed in trash cans for carrying around comic books there. And, but I was always a superhero fan. I liked the Spider-Man and the X-Men cartoons from the early 90s. The Batman animated series is probably the best Batman thing out there. It's pretty great. Plus you got Luke Skywalker in there doing the Joker, so you know that can't be bad. But yeah, it got hard for me in middle school and high school. Things started to die down. I couldn't pay as much attention to it as I wanted, just because again, you get stuffed in trash cans, lockers, all that stuff for wearing your Spider-Man T-shirt to school in the late '90s and early 2000s. People didn't
Definitely not like it is today.
No, people didn't like that. Now I wear my Spider-Man shirt proudly because Spider-Man's cool. But for some reason, people didn't agree with that stance, and they didn't think you were cool unless you, I don't know, what did cool people do in high school?
I don't know. I don't think I was that cool, even though I played sports. So I never really made fun of anybody for watching or reading comic books or anything like that. But I will say, just going back real quick to the Iron Man Dark Knight stuff, I think casting had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, they nailed those guys, which before, you know, there wasn't a lot of good casting. You had Val Kilmer and that other guy that was from ER, I think. I don't know. I haven't seen him in much since. What's his name? Kunesh or something?
No, I was never really a big Tobey Maguire fan, though, either.
Well,
you know, and so
we're going to disagree on that.
I've seen those movies, and a lot of people do disagree with me on that. I think it's just a personal stance, to be honest with you.
Tobey was a great Spider-Man and great Peter Parker, I thought. And but see, that brings me to my next point of it was hard to be a fan, really. The first two Spider-Man movies, you could go see those, and nobody would make fun of you. But if you got in too deep about how, you know, the Green Goblin wasn't properly portrayed, people didn't want to sit there and listen to you.
Talk about it like they do now.
People will listen to you now, and they'll hear your opinions on when you know more than they may know.
With Heath Ledger, talking about Heath Ledger playing the Joker, that's a hitting a nail on the head there. Downey,
I mean, that was
even in Christian Bale being as awesome as he was playing Batman. I mean, casting had a lot to do with it, and I think when you got things right for the first time in a really long time, Spidey set a lot of records with that Tobey Maguire.
Oh yeah,
in the box
not beaten until Vinny Chase and Aquaman.
Vinny Chase and Aquaman,
and they took Spidey down. But
a DC film coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's a shame.
Must have had the Black Manta in that one.
Shame he never did the second one.
Yeah, Gyllenhaal he didn't live up to it. Yeah, but so it was hard, and the genre was really slipping at that point. After Spider-Man 2, everything was looking downhill. You had Spider-Man 3, which wasn't great. Batman Begins, which a lot of people see as great now, but at the time
it didn't.
It was critically acclaimed, but it didn't put the butts in the seats, I would say. X-Men: The Last Stand, I personally like that movie, but again, a lot of people don't. You had both the Fantastic Four movies, which were cartoonish and bright, and Galactus was
a tornado in space.
Yeah, which is weird because I always remember him as a big purple giant. Cool. The Silver Surfer was cool, but Galactus wasn't a big purple giant guy, which
that's almost blasphemous if you're a comic book fan.
Right.
So.
And then you had the early Punisher movies and Blade Trinity, which was by far the worst of the Blade movies. And so everything was really downhill at that point. And then 2008 comes, you get Iron Man, you get The Dark Knight, and you get this resurgence. And it's now cool to like these things. Those are arguably two of the best movies of 2008.
I wouldn't even go as far as call it a resurgence, as far as a transcendence.
Transcendence,
and, because it's not like I have a huge issue with casting like Tobey Maguire or Kirsten Dunst or James Franco, or if you want to do, how are you going to have a problem with Hugh Jackman or Famke Janssen? How are you going to have a problem with Chris Evans? Obviously now hindsight's 2020, but I never had a problem with the cast of the Fantastic Four. It's just that the storylines, like you said, were cartoonish. But when you have strong character actors like Robert Downey Jr., Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, those things, that transcendence starts to demand a little more from other comic book movies that are coming out. It's like, this is the blueprint. if you can find somebody that's going to transcend that role and find a way to make it mainstream for the first time, because
and arguably
movies,
that's where DC has gone wrong now.
Yeah.
Is they can't hit that nail on that. Besides just being terrible at building a universe, because they don't give anyone an actual backstory or room to grow. They haven't, like, this guy playing Barry Allen, he's good, you know, but he's not Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Hemsworth in their roles.
And now they just sort of fit in there. It's not like you could sit there and say, Chris Hemsworth's going to make an amazing Thor. 10 years down the road, he's going to be a superstar.
No, I've seen other work from Chris Hemsworth, and
I have too,
he's arguably not good in anything other than Thor.
And it's well written for him. But I will say, at that point in time, when you look back into the mid to late 2000s, that I was the casual moviegoer. You had to find a way to get my butt in the seats. Were you going to go to any of these?
Did you go to Spider-Man 3 or Batman Begins?
I went to 0 of these movies in the theaters.
And me being a huge superhero fan, I waited for most of these on DVD. Spider-Man 3 I actually saw 3 times in the theater, and I love Spider-Man 3. You just kind of block out the weird dance scene. But I personally love that movie.
It was blocked out for a long time until you just brought it back up.
Yeah,
so thanks for that.
Get the hip
with
thrusts
with the stupid hair.
Yeah, if you just forget that part of it, it's actually a pretty good movie. And in my opinion, at least. But other than that, I think I saw X-Men Last Stand in the theater, and that's it.
You see, like I said, I was a casual viewer. You had to figure out a way to get me into the theater. Now I can't give Marvel my money fast enough, and I mentioned to you in our little pre-discussion here that I said, "Hey, we're going to rank our movies later, so you have bones to pick with us down the line." But I got 1 through 17, and it's not like I disliked any of these movies or I'm crapping on any of them. I'm not. Anytime I told Cal here, I said, anytime you got those comic book pages flipping at the beginning of the movie, I'm a happy camper. So it's, I have different reasons for the obscurity of my rankings, and I guarantee you some of you listening are going to have a weird problem with it.
Yeah, we're gonna go into we're actually gonna rank our favorite movies. We'll probably only do the top 10, and then maybe just rapid fire off the last 7 that we think, and have a little room for discussion. But it's, to your point, it's been hard for me as somebody who's a lifetime fan to watch people like you come on, and you're one of the better examples because you put a little bit of the work in and you understand that it's deeper than just guys in flashy tights dancing around on screen for your enjoyment, and in my life it was super hard to get information. Like I said, I came from a small town. There's no comic book store. Every once in a while our grocery store might have a Spider-Man comic that I would pick up, but I'd watch the cartoons, like I said, and to learn anything deeper about the characters, you had to put in work. You had to find things. If you're out of town, shopping at the mall in the next town over that's half an hour away, then you try and find some more information on your favorite characters. Now, I mean, you can pick up your computer and learn all about somebody as obscure as like Black Lightning. It takes you an afternoon.
Wikia.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to learn now, so it's frustrating for someone like me.
Because it's
to
so
see how easy
me.
it is for someone else. Yeah.
To see how,
and it's like, okay, I've been a fan for this for 20-something years. You've been a fan for 5, and you probably know more than I do right now because you have the time to go deeper on it than I do right now.
Right.
And yeah, so that's it's just been hard as a longtime fan, and other longtime fans that I know, like it's hard to talk about these things because we know our fandom is deeper than a lot of people's because we put in the work because we had to at the time.
Right.
So it's like hard to get into a conversation with somebody and not know. Well, do they know every iteration of Spider-Man out there and all the different worlds?
Know that there's like 4 or 5 of them? Or,
right. Do you know anything about Miles Morales or, these guys, Spider-Man 2099? Do you know, it's hard to go deep because that's all you want to do is go into a deep discussion, but then you find out this guy saw the Andrew Garfield movies and that's all his background is.
Yeah.
I like the Andrew Garfield movies,
I did too,
to be
honestly.
honest.
As much as I love Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield was a victim of poor plot.
Yeah, and there's no better Gwen Stacy out there than Emma Stone. So if
Yeah.
they're looking to recast her for the next 2 or
Mm-hmm.
3 Spider-Mans in the MCU, and I think they
did
should
hear
stay
a
away
rumor.
from it.
Just a little sidebar. Sorry if this is off the beaten path here. I did see an article on Screen Rant that they could be
About the French actress.
the voice actress for the cartoon that plays Spider-Gwen. And because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is in space...
See, this is what I'm talking. He's
They
got
could-
way more time on his hands to go deep than I do.
I get really bored at home after work, and I try to channel it into good things. But so I read that they could be integrating Spider-Gwen into that Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in space in the later part of this season. Which, in my opinion, if you're a
Agents of
fan,
S.H.I.E.L.D. is in space now?
it's in space now. I'm sorry if I gave that away, but
No,
it's a
well,
good
I've
ride.
been way off. I haven't watched since
But
like season 3. Because
If you were a
it's
fan of the
not good.
Ghost Rider arc of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which
see that
was
one.
awesome, the Ghost Rider arc of that series was really great. I'm anticipating what they could do with a futuristic Spider-Gwen Stacy in that. So that's what I'm anticipating. So
Yeah, Gwen Stacy, she's good stuff. And if it was me plotting out the MCU, I would avoid her because Emma Stone was so good. I would just skip over Gwen Stacy. But, she's very pivotal in Peter Parker's life. Might be the most important person in his life, just as character growth and, living through what he's had to live through.
well, if we're talking Spider-Man, to be honest with you, I think a big reason I didn't like that the trilogy it's not high at all on my list is the sappy relationship between Mary Jane and Peter. It was always, and I get it that's comic book canon.
I had some
the way it was
issues
portrayed
with
on film.
Yeah, I
wasn't
had
my
some
biggest-
issues with their relationship.
wasn't
And they
my
broke up
favorite
in the
thing.
third one and all that. And but it's refreshing to be able to have a deep conversation about this stuff with somebody who learned it in a short period of time. And we tried to talk about Game of Thrones one time, and I couldn't get into it with you at the time because I knew my thoughts were going to be so far off from yours because of my background with that. And so I find myself having to do that a lot when people start talking about things, Star Wars or the MCU, things like that. I just avoid the conversation rather than
Well, see, this is why I'm here.
having to avoid making the other person feel stupid because I'm gonna try and go so deep and they're just gonna stare at me with
See, that's
this
why I'm
blank
here,
stare.
because with me, I just learn stuff.
And
With me,
that's
I just
nice.
learn stuff.
And that's
It's good.
nice. And that's with Game of Thrones. That's where I came into it. We'll probably do a whole show on that eventually.
Yeah, down the line, 2020 or whenever they want
Yeah.
to get this thing on the air.
All right, we're gonna go into a little bit of rankings here. We're gonna go. There's 17 movies right now in the MCU. It seems like there's about 50, but there's actually only 17. So we're gonna each rank our top 10, and we're gonna rapid fire real quick, 10 through 17, or 17 through 10, I guess, and then we'll go into a little more detail on 10 through 1. I'm gonna start. My 17th is Thor: The Dark World. Then 16 is Incredible Hulk. 15 is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. 14 is Iron Man 2. 13, Doctor Strange. 12, Iron Man 3. 11 is Captain America: Winter Soldier. That rounds out my bottom 7. What do you got, Eric?
We got a lot of differences is what we got
Well,
here. 17, and like I said, before we did this, there are no bad movies in my opinion anyway. Like, you can have all the negative opinions you want, but at the end of the day, I'm going to see a movie and I'm entertained. So,
Honestly, I like Daredevil with Ben Affleck, so...
and that's your
That's
thing.
what it is.
Spider-Man broke box office records. I didn't necessarily care for it. Doesn't mean you have to. So, but if you got a bone to pick with me, obviously we're going to have avenues for which you can.
Tweet the show.
Tweet the show. 17,
We don't have
Incredible
a Twitter
Hulk.
yet.
16, The Dark World. 15, the first Thor. 14, Doctor Strange. 13, Ant-Man. 12, Captain America: The First Avenger. And 11 would be Homecoming. And a lot of these are just preferential on my favorite character.
I'm going to have to just tell you you're wrong because Spider-Man Homecoming is definitely top 10.
Like I said, I have my reasons. So,
well, like I said, your reasons are wrong. But let's move on. We're going to go back and forth. We'll give the highlights of why we think each one deserved the number it got. My number 10 is Thor Ragnarok, the most recent release of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was a good movie. I felt this, and that's why it's not higher, is because I just felt like they made too many jokes. You know, it got a bit childish because it was like they tried to make you laugh every 30 seconds, and I don't need to laugh that much. If I want to laugh that much, I'll put on Seinfeld. Always good for a laugh.
Never does you wrong.
But it was good. I liked the Planet Hulk stuff that they did. Jeff Goldblum was gold, if I must say myself.
He was Jeff Goldblum.
Pun completely intended there. And the little guy with his buddy Doug, don't remember his name, but he was pretty funny. That was the director actually doing the voice for
Korg.
that. Fun fact.
You're talking about Korg?
Korg.
He's not
yeah.
little.
Korg.
He's not little.
He was little compared to the Incredible Hulk.
Hey, yeah, that is true.
What's your number 10?
My number 10 would be Iron Man 3. And it's not that it's the most critically acclaimed film. It's not that. But Iron Man's my favorite character in the entire universe. So it's going to get the nod over something I find almost just as good, maybe even not as good as something that might have ranked below it. Like, I loved Ant-Man, but I'm more entertained by all the different suits and everything going on with Iron Man, like, in that space. And I was just more entertained for it.
It was cool. I'll agree. It was cool with the
final scene.
Iron Legion. Is that what it was?
No,
the Iron Legion was
just
from Ultron when he had all his suits. Yeah,
it was the protocol. What was it? The party protocol.
House Party Protocol.
There
That's
you go.
it.
So
yeah, that was a good one. That was cool with all the different suits.
So what's your number 9?
So number 9, I got Avengers: Age of Ultron, and looking at your list, it looks like we've got the same number 9.
Same number. Why is it number 9 to you?
It was a good movie, which I'm probably going to say about each one on my list. It wasn't too deep, which is a big argument against it. But they're superhero movies. Do they have to be deep? I liked James Spader. He was great as the voice of Ultron. He was better as Robert California, I'd have to say, but he was a good Ultron. My one nitpick of it, it was a little long, I'd say.
I don't care about length. I could sit there all day.
And they really didn't do Quicksilver justice, and it's probably partly because the X-Men had just done Quicksilver and done too good of a job with it that
they really did.
They just figured, we can't compete. Let's kill him right away. Spoiler alert.
Arguably the best part about the new reboots of those movies. One of the best.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we digress. I had Ultron down there because I thought it could have been better. Even though, like, we talked about some of these things aesthetically that were an improvement on the first Avengers
Absolutely.
movie.
Yeah.
Story-wise, not so much. But obviously, a lot of the things that you had to bring together from the first one didn't have to exist in the second one.
And one of the things we talked about before, and we can go deeper into this, is they didn't really build a villain in Ultron. I mean, they literally built a villain in Ultron, Tony Stark, and what's his face there?
He wasn't
the
really
green
fleshed
guy.
out.
But yeah,
he was out.
Here's his motivations. He
the
wants
world.
to take over the world. I mean, that's every villain's motivation. Let me feel why. And, we can get into that a little later.
But I thought they made a big mistake aesthetically with Ultron. And we discussed this before.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the first teaser trailer that Marvel cut for Ultron, and it's just a bunch of voices in the background, characters that you've heard say lines that you're familiar with, and what it is the head of Ultron kind of growing inside the Iron Man helmet and replacing it eventually, which it's built in Stark's lab.
Yeah,
so,
it almost
but it looks like the comic version,
right? And it almost looks like
looking.
the Iron Legion uniforms that they had, the white and blue ones that he had protecting the city in the beginning. It looks like a broken one of those, like Ultron originally was before he built
this one
his
had
body.
the triangle eyes that you see in the comics. It's like the scarier version of it. And I want to say, and I heard this somewhere. I heard this somewhere that Disney wanted Marvel to kind of soften.
Disney guys.
Can't say that anymore. What they did there was soften it up to make it a little more palatable for younger kids, because I think that version of Ultron might have been a little bit scary. As not scary as we might have seen it.
I have kids.
They wanted to make it a little more palatable.
I'm not sending them to these movies. I don't get these people that... if that's your deal, go ahead, but it's not for the kids. It's for me.
It's for me. I get that, and I wish that's what they would have done with Ultron. So anyways, a little too long talking about Ultron. What's your 8?
And I got number 8. I have Thor, the original Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this comes from a little bit different of a background. I went in kind of expecting it to be bad because Thor is a D-level character, maybe. I mean, he's one of the original Avengers, but nobody cares about Thor. He talks weird. He's Norse god. He's 9 realms. Heimdall, all this stuff. Heimdall's actually great in the Thor films, too. Idris Elba.
I agree. Completely
Great,
agree.
great casting there.
Might be your next Bond.
That would be cool. I'm not a big Bond fan, though. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I went into it not expecting much, and it totally blew my expectations out of water. They somehow made a good movie about something I could not have cared less about. And that's kind of when I knew the MCU was here for the long run. Yeah, it was gonna find where it wanted to be, which was eventually Avengers and eventually Infinity War. They figured it out. When you can make Thor and Ant-Man and Doctor Strange into interesting movies, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I will say I didn't give enough credit maybe to Thor, the first one. It's just aesthetically, maybe it didn't seem as appealing to me when it first came out.
I'm even going to give it extra because I saw it in 3D and still liked it. I hate watching
back
movies
then
in 3D.
3D.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't like it either. My number 8 was Thor Ragnarok, and a lot of the same reasons that you did. Hey, anytime you can get Loki and Thor back on the screen, and then you throw in some new characters like a Korg, and you get to flesh out these guys a little bit before the movie starts. That's where trailers are fun. And also Ragnarok met the expectations that I saw.
They ruined the best
trailers.
joke of the film, though. Work with him.
Oh, that would have been fantastic. Did you hear the story about how that got written?
Yeah, it was the Make-A-Wish kid.
Make-A-Wish kid suggested that line, and I thought that would have been
really
the
cool
line
to
of
see
the
it
movie
for the first
if
thing.
you saw it for the first time in the theater. I saw that, but oh my gosh, the way they use the old Jack Kirby comics, as an influence for the artwork and everything that. And I thought that the storyline was fun and everything. And
I was hoping we would get to see Beta Ray Bill.
Beta
Ray Bill's a cool dude.
Like in the flesh.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
They have
a
statue of
flesh out there. I think.
I mean,
but
you've
they
got
had
a
the
Hulk.
statue. I saw.
You've got a Hulk. Why can't you make a horseman?
Because we've already established that the Hulk exists. Anyway,
Beta Ray Bill exists. They had a statue.
That would have just taken away from the storyline. I think you're wondering about.
Got a much cooler hammer than Thor.
Agree to disagree. Anyway, another thing I want to delve into with Ragnarok a little bit.
He could have been Doug. They could have used him instead of Doug. All right, we didn't need Doug.
You wanted a dead Beta Ray Bill?
That,
you would have had a dead Beta
that.
Ray Bill just to have him in the movie, just to shove him in there.
I want a horseman.
Easter egg.
Yep.
All right, but here's another. Thor's never been funny.
No.
In a movie before this.
He was a little funny in the Avengers movies. He was a little funny.
What are you getting sleepy? That's the funniest line he probably says in the whole movie. But I think it was a genius plot to unpack Thor as maybe a comedic character, as Hemsworth is maybe somebody that's got the chops to be funny. When they did the Team Thor stuff in response to Civil War, the first and second part with Daryl.
Oh, yeah,
in the apartment. Those were hilarious. Then you had the Instagram, where he's on set and he's just hitting stuff with his hammer.
And he had that time where Thor was being a hacker. Did you see that part?
No. What?
That was...
Oh, that movie?
Yeah.
What about the IndyCar driver?
Oh,
he was really good.
He was a great IndyCar driver.
And he was trying to get with Ed Helms' wife in a movie.
Yeah, he was trying to... He also tried to catch Moby Dick one time.
What's your number 7? Go.
Number 7, Captain America: First Avenger, and this is where it got really tough for me to differentiate these bottom 7 or top 7, as you were. I love Captain America: First Avenger. I have very few issues with it, other than Red Skull has never come back. I love Red Skull. He's one of my favorite villains, of all. They brought him in really well. They actually, compared to a lot of the other villains, they fleshed out his motivations very well, and what he was planning on to do next, from inventing
the stakes,
his blue weapons with the Tesseract, and and then he never came back. And part of it's Hugo Weaving doesn't want to come back, and part of it is he hasn't had a chance to come back. Maybe in Infinity War he'll come back. Yeah, let's hope.
Signs are pointing closer to no than to yes as far as.
I don't care what your signs say, Eric.
I'm just
think it says yield.
I don't want you to just be disappointed.
Why
And
not?
I think the one thing
They
that
haven't
disappoints
disappointed
me
me yet,
the most about that is didn't get to see a whole lot of Haley Atwell. She's a terrific
did you
actress.
watch the Agent Carter?
Of course I did. I told you
terrible
I watched
TV show.
I don't even think it was terrible. I think
No,
Netflix
it
should
wasn't
pick it
good.
up and do a third season and maybe even a fourth.
I will say it had
I
one
don't
thing
care.
over a lot of these other shows is they did the 6-episode run instead of the 22 episodes. We don't
Where
know
you
what
just
to do.
slog through it.
We
It
don't know
wasn't
what
a
to do for
22
15
episode
of the
show.
22.
But I do
episodes.
miss her in the MCU, and it's a shame that she's kind of just reverted to flashback scenes. Which, when you're in the 40s and 50s, I guess that's what you get.
Natalie Dormer in that movie too.
Yeah, fun fact
From
Fun
Game of
fact.
Thrones.
Yep, Game of Thrones lore.
Marjorie Tyrell.
Burned up in there, and
Well, yeah, and the Great
the
Scepter
Scepter.
Baylor. She's Scepter, huh?
not on that show anymore either.
No.
All right, so you're number 6, my friend.
Yeah,
This
you
is
didn't
where
do
things
number.
get-
You didn't do number 7.
I didn't do number.
You
7.
didn't do number
We'll get that
7.
in post. My number 7 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Whoa.
Which you hated. And hate's a strong. I hope hate's not too strong of a word for you because
I didn't like it.
I know. Okay, so
I'll explain
I
why. You
thought,
tell me why you liked it.
hey, I thought it fleshed out a lot of characters. I thought it brought some people that might have been considered villains into the fold to make the team even stronger and closer. I mean, anytime you can get Gamora's sister back and be an ally by the end, maybe, and it still hasn't really officially happened on screen, but Yondu
Yondu is great.
Yondu stole the show.
Yondu is
and
great.
when you have a cast of Chris Pratt, who is good, Zoe Saldana, who is good, and you always enjoy the voice of Bradley Cooper and the 3 words that Vin Diesel says. And, you know, Dave Bautista has been such a surprise with this franchise. I think he surprised the heck out of a lot of people. But the casting that James Gunn does and the directing that he does is home run after home run. And then you go on and bring a guy like Michael Rooker in, who's basically the blue version of Merle from The Walking Dead. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not a Walking Dead. I don't like zombies.
Same sort of voice, I guess you could say, as rough around the edges as that character, and a lot of people listening to this might get it. But he was able to steal the show being a complete secondary character, and you still enjoyed everybody else around him. I think
Plus,
that
you
there's
had
a lot
Sly
to say for
Stallone
that.
in there. You can never go wrong with
Yeah,
Rocky.
can't go wrong with there. And somehow you got Miley Cyrus in there, which I was confused about. You know that?
Oh yeah, she was in that.
She was a voice, yeah.
Post-credit scene as the crystal
Or one
lady.
of the 17 post-credit scenes in that movie, which is probably another annoyance of yours, wasn't it?
I don't mind. Coming in, it's just extra content. Coming into an MCU movie, you got to stay till the credits are done rolling. If you don't, that's on you. I liked the confirmation as Stan Lee as one of the Watchers. I thought that was cool.
Very nice. Very nice.
We don't know if he's
integrated.
Uatu yet, but he definitely is working with those
He would-
Watchers, and he's watching.
It'd be cool if that's what he ended up being.
But my problem with Volume 2 is a lot the same with my problem with Ragnarok. They just had so many jokes. Like we get it. Things are funny. Everything doesn't have to be a joke.
You're also in a
You know?
movie, though.
Yeah.
You don't come for the ultimate. You're not going to see Dunkirk or, you're not
Definitely
going
didn't
to
go
see
see Dunkirk.
But you're not going to see the dark realism of what's about to take
no,
over.
I
You're going
get
to
that,
see
but I don't need a joke every 30 seconds to tell me that this movie's funny. I mean,
Another agree to disagree then, because
and-
I loved it.
And I
Start to finish.
I thought all the family stuff was a bit heavy-handed. They really beat you over the head with I didn't have a dad, and you were never actually my sister, and all that. It was a bit much. Like I get where these people are coming from. Let's pump the brakes on it a little bit. You
Understood.
need it in there. You definitely need it in there, but it's.
But I think that they needed to
Little
deal
heavy.
with that before you get to the stakes of Infinity War. Maybe if you didn't tackle that,
I guess, yeah, because you're not
because
going to
then
get
because this movie.
Because why is Nebula really helping out in Infinity War?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Infinity War, there's supposed to be some real stakes in this film, and I think that to establish the fact
How is
that
Star-Lord going to help out now that he's not a god anymore? I mean, that's going to be
he's
rough
still
for him.
Star-Lord. I mean, it's not like
Yes,
he didn't even
can't
know
breathe
he
in space anymore.
So, well, he wasn't very good at it before
That's
when
true.
he knew it.
He-
But my point is, I think you had to flesh out the fact that these people mean a lot more to each other than just your typical movie team.
I agree, and I'm
when
just
add
saying
that
you probably
on
could have done it a
to
little easier.
The plot of Infinity War, I think you.
Well,
you-
we'll just
yeah.
have to wait and see for 2018. Stay
We
tuned.
will, yeah, right.
Number 6, I had Ant-Man. And
selection.
I like that above Captain America: First Avenger because it had humor. And it only had some humor. It wasn't all humor like these other two we're just talking about. Michael Pena in this movie, he kind of stole the show with his stories. That was great. You got Clifford Harris in there. You may know him as T.I.
You may know him as T.I.
Yeah, he was great. Paul. Anytime you can see Paul Rudd in a movie, I'm there.
Surprise cast, probably of the entire MCU, in my opinion.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
He's great
as a superhero.
I would watch any movie with Paul Rudd.
I know.
I would watch Paul Rudd
me.
folding laundry for an hour and a half. Because he's just so darn charming.
Voyeuristic.
In a film. In a film.
Oh, okay. All right. If there's a film.
Somebody else was the voyeur.
No, but that was a surprise to me that he did. And it wasn't much of a surprise that he killed it. But, you know, I liked all the casting in that movie, too, you know? So,
yeah. Good film.
My number
Good
6
film.
is probably the one that's filled with the most controversy, and it's a lot. And it's
I've got some
a lot
thoughts
of
on
people
this. I've got
take
notes for you.
a lot of people take shots at this film because it didn't follow up the right way, but I have to pay homage, and that's why this is number 6 is Iron Man 2. Is because this is the one that hooked me. It found a way to get to me, to introduce new characters, and to help me understand a little bit more about the universe and what these characters were. I got to meet War Machine. I got to meet Black Widow. I got to meet officially to me Nick Fury
with a different face than he had in the last film.
Different face than he had in the last one.
But you didn't notice that because
I didn't notice that.
You probably went to watch the first film.
If I had to
what's
pick
Terrence
one,
Howard doing here?
even way back then.
Oh, Cheadle's better.
Cheadle's better, and I've always been a fan of Cheadle ever since the Ocean's 11 franchise. You know, like I said, I didn't make it to movies much, so it's not like
I had that Clooney guy in it too. I
had
think.
that Clooney guy,
Yeah.
Matt Damone, you know, those dudes.
Batfleck. They're all in there. Batfleck wasn't in those
So
movies.
that's why. I mean, listen, I know it's
Brad
not the greatest critical film of the MCU by any stretch, but I enjoy it. I still enjoy it, and when it's ever on like FX in anticipation for a new one, hey, it's going to be on while I'm doing laundry, some background noise.
With Paul Rudd?
And then I'll get... No.
Are you doing your laundry with Paul Rudd?
No. Why would he be at my house?
Thought it was
Point being is... And it'll still get me to stop and watch a scene or two for like 5 or 10 minutes of the movie. And I think that there's something to be said for a movie that still makes me watch it all these years later. And still makes me enjoy it all these years later. And I don't care what you think about it. That's the way I
And you shouldn't have to. These are your opinions, Eric. So my issue with Iron Man 2 is it got a little ruined for me before I went in. You know, this was before the MCU had really boomed. So while I was going to see every movie, I wasn't there opening weekend.
Okay.
You know, which a lot of people weren't at this time. My friend at the time, he had seen it before me. And I asked how it was, and his thoughts were it was good, but it's too much about Tony Stark and not enough Iron Man. And going into it thinking that, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? Like it was.
You think you would have liked it more if you didn't hear that analysis?
I think I would have. Because I wouldn't have been so focused on it. The introduction of Scarlet Witch is great in that she's
not Scarlet Witch, Black Widow.
Black Widow, man,
I find myself doing that
today.
I find myself doing that, making that same weird.
Because they're the only two females in the universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Marvel. Let's get some more people.
Let's get Captain Marvel in there quicker than 2019.
So yeah, it definitely ruined it for me a little. Going in there, just thinking that. But yeah, Black Widow was great. She beat the crap out of Happy Hogan, which is always funny to watch. Jon Favreau floundering around. So it's that, and they didn't really do the Demon in a Bottle story arc justice. He was
touched on it, but
he was like halvesy alcoholic. It wasn't like we're gonna really dive into Tony Stark's an alcoholic.
I don't think that's something they
you can't sell
afford.
toys with that. Yeah,
they couldn't afford that early in the MCU.
Right? Because
if they were introducing Iron Man now somehow, they could do it now.
Yeah.
But
they could probably throw a little bit of that into Infinity War if there wasn't so much going on. Like you don't have time for that.
You
in
really
like
don't.
Infinity
And
War,
you just kind of know the background. He was a party boy. Now he's taken his job as saving the world a little.
Maybe in a future Spider-Man movie they can
seriously.
throw it in. Spider-Man's looking for some guidance, and Tony just can't be bothered with it because he's hammered all the time.
Still
those
don't
just
think you
notes,
got room
Marvel,
for
throw
that
it
in the
there.
Spider-Man franchise.
I don't know. In Iron Man
You want
4,
your-
I mean, Spider-Man Homecoming, they had
want your
plenty of time for Iron Man.
12 to 17 demographic going into, Mommy, what's that? What's he drinking? Why is he
Those were the
drunk all
people
the time?
reading. I think 17-year-olds know what whiskey is.
I hope so.
Most of them do.
Well, no, I don't hope so. I'm sorry.
That brings us to number 5.
Number 5.
So yeah, my number 5, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Good movie, a great movie. Not as good as the next 4. I think it was just because it came so late in the MCU. They're kind of at this formulaic point where they know the formula, so they just keep running with it. So it's kind of like it doesn't feel as original as some of these other ones that we're going to go over as my top 4.
Mm-hmm.
But it had a little too much Iron Man for me.
Mm-hmm.
It felt almost like Iron Man 3.5, I would say. But Tom Holland did a great job. He actually looked like a high schooler. Tobey Maguire being 30 years old, and I think he was only 28 at the time, but he didn't look like a high schooler. They should have just started him in college if that's who they were going to choose. Andrew Garfield did a little bit better looking like a high school student, but Tom Holland kind of nails it. Love that he calls her suit lady the whole time. I thought that was funny. That's great. Very endearing. The Vulture was
Karen.
Karen. I thought that was her name, but I didn't want to get it wrong yet again. I've been doing that a lot, so. But yeah, it was good. It was great. Humor in all the right places. Didn't go overboard on that. The Vulture was a good villain. Michael Keaton kind of killed it. And,
agreed on that, and you'll know why I rank him very high on my list of my short list of villains.
Yeah, I mean Vulture was good. He nailed it. Probably the second best Spider-Man villain out of all the movies. Doc Ock in the second Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was probably the best. I'm interested to see what they do with this MJ character. If they're gonna run and make her a surrogate Mary Jane, or if they're just they keep saying, it was just an Easter egg type thing. It doesn't mean anything. She's definitely not Mary Jane, but there is talk of them running with her being that character, basically. There's not going to be a Mary Jane. And I'm
perfectly
fine
okay with it.
I'm not one of these comics purists where you have to get everything perfect.
Because I think there's things that you can't adapt from comic books.
And there's 30 different universes. You bring in part. Speaking of which, this doesn't have anything to do with the universes actually at all. But Donald Glover as the cousin to Miles Morales, and he's going to be the Prowler at some point, which I like the Prowler as a character, so that's going to be cool. But Donald Glover kills it in just all his delivery of all his lines of being like, yeah.
If you watched Atlanta,
I need a gun,
surprise.
but I don't need to vaporize people. I just, Atlanta was great. Favorite part of Atlanta, the invisible car that turned out to be real.
Fun fact.
Check out Atlanta. Great show.
Rewinding back, fun fact: Jennifer Connelly is the voice of Karen.
I knew that.
Sweet Lady.
Yes,
I didn't know if our listeners did.
Yeah, and she's married to Paul Bettany, who is Jarvis.
Who is Jarvis?
Or, I don't know, is married or was married. It's hard to keep up with these celebrity couples. But at one point, they were married, and now they're playing AIs together.
My thing about Homecoming was it was great to see a high school kid, and it felt like that. And I think I guess you can't really compromise on it. You can't have one without the other. And it's still decently high on my list, but just outside of my top 10. It felt like a teen movie. It felt like it was geared towards teens, and I'm okay with it because I still enjoyed it.
They make these superhero movies, and that's what I like about the MCU. They make the superhero movies into genre movies. Winter Soldier is a spy thriller. I mean, when we walked out of it, I said that felt like a Robert Redford movie, not a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Thor is kind of a fantasy story every time. Captain America always have these kind of spy tones to it. Spider-Man felt more like a high school or a teen movie. Felt closer to Edge of 17 than the Avengers. Yeah. And that's good. That's why they've been so successful. The DC movies, they just throw everything at you, and they're like, "Hey, superheroes beating each other up with no depth."
That's exhausting. Anyway, and I'm not a DC hater. It's just some of the stuff. We'll get into that later. My number 5...
Or we won't, because it's not.
My number 5 was the first Iron Man. Terrific film, critically acclaimed.
Criminally underrated, I think.
Okay, that's cool, but I got my reasons for that. Like I said, I'm a new fan, and I didn't really get to go and anticipate that film. I didn't get to go watch the trailers. I didn't see the trailers when I watched other movies in the theater around that time. I didn't get to see it on the big screen. So for me to come out and still like it the way I did, I mean, one of my favorite things is him just saying, sitting down eating a Whopper in front of the podium. You know, I think that was just, it perfectly encapsulated what he was going through at that point in time, and he couldn't wait to figure out what his next step was. I'm sorry, and I like Jeff Bridges. Ironmonger, not one of my favorite villains, but I thought the way he operated in that movie, like a little behind the scenes and in private, like a monster.
Well, he's another villain that was fleshed out more than say your...
but he had to be, because it's the first.
Dormammu's or Caecilius's.
So, anyways, what's your number 4?
Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. This was basically Star Wars with funnier characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, they hit all their jokes. It was this space epic. The music was perfect. It was, it's probably it's definitely one of my favorites. It's number 4, obviously, out of 17. And they just did such a great job of capturing the levity of these characters and not taking them. So everybody looked like they were having fun in the movie. Mm-hmm. Which, in the second one, it didn't look like everyone was having as much fun to me. It looked like they were forcing jokes and kind of forcing these feelings towards each other that maybe are there, maybe not. And in the first one, it just kind of felt like everyone was having fun.
Isn't that kind of the old adage, like you're nicer to your friends than you are to your family?
I guess.
So when you get to know people a little bit better, you kind of treat them a little bit differently than when you first meet someone and you're hanging out and you're having a good time. And then you start to get to know them and the things that they do. And I think that there's a realism that might get missed by a few people in that. But you're right. I'm jumping because Guardians is a little higher on the first Guardians is a little higher on my list than yours. So I'll wait until I get there with that. But do you have anything to add on that before I get to my number 4?
No. It was just a fun movie. This was another one like Thor that I went into not expecting much. I didn't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to touch on that.
Yeah, and I went in and it was fun. I had fun. A lot of movies nowadays, they're just not fun anymore. Mm-hmm. Everything's taken too seriously. Like the DC movies, they try
so much of a tonal.
Yeah,
trying too hard to be different.
It's
from
good
Marvel.
when it looks like the people who are in the movie are actually having fun.
Yes.
Regardless if the movie's fun or not, if the actors look like they're having fun, it's going to be a better movie.
Once again, James Gunn. So my number 4 might be a little bit low compared to some people. Is Civil War. Civil War was. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with the movie.
Right, when you get into your top 5, I mean, everything.
There's really nothing wrong with the movie. There's no difference really between. There's a very slight edge, and it's just my own personal preference between 1 and 4. I mean,
right? Yeah. I get that.
Giant Man was cool.
Giant Man was great.
Giant Man was really cool.
Paul Rudd
think about that
again. Paul Rudd,
tear himself in half, and just watching all those people come together. You didn't like watching them fight because you rooted for all these guys, but you knew it had to go down.
And you also knew there were no stakes because there's 3 more Avengers movies.
Yeah, and you already knew it was coming, so you could just have fun and watch them kick the crap out of each other.
I was a little worried for War Machine there for a little bit.
I was.
And if somebody had to die, he probably would have been the bad at that point.
But I'm glad he survived and was able to watch his package get delivered to Tony Stank. And so it's hard to get rid of Cheadle. Anyway, but yeah, Civil War, for obvious reasons, very, very high up on my list. Not going to go too much into it. You guys know what happened. But you're number 3, Cal.
The Avengers. Again, great film. Brought everyone together. It was the perfect way to do it. There's no other way to do it. I mean, if you've seen Justice League, there's so many ways to screw it up that they just did it perfectly. They had the tension in the beginning between the different characters and why they might not like each other because each one thinks they're actually best suited to do this when really they're all best suited together. Mm-hmm. It's really about family and togetherness in the Avengers.
Which is the same reason that you freaking hate Volume 2.
Correct. Because they don't beat you over the head with it. They realize that they need to be together.
Although that one scene in the lab, that was getting to be little tense there.
Kind
Kind of like almost beating you over the head with a little bit of these moments.
The tension is good. A lot of good Easter eggs there. You had Odin's ravens watching over Thor at one point.
Nice little Easter egg. Good drop.
They just, they nailed it. Loki was perfect. And then he's working for somebody. He's not even the main guy. You got Thanos sitting up there waiting,
I mean, it seems like it was such an age ago, but it was really just 5
Out of all
years.
the CGI armies you can have, like the Chitauri filled in great, because the stakes have to be bigger.
I'm going to get to that because that's higher than I have. I have it higher than you do on my list.
Fun fact, fan theory out there that the Hydra actually helped Loki come in, because Hydra was still controlling S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Helped Loki come in, helped the Chitauri come in, because they wanted the Avengers Initiative to take place. And I think I read this on Reddit somewhere, as I can't give credit, but it's out there. They wanted all the Avengers in one place, and they wanted the nuke to land to take out all the Avengers, because then Hydra could rise up.
Right. Without any impedance.
Correct. So I thought that was a fun theory.
I've heard that theory in a few articles that I've had. So yeah, very interesting little background.
I'm a sucker
fan
for
theory.
fan theories.
I like that. It just goes to show.
Don't
how
ever come up with
dedicated-
any on my own, but
I have a hard
I like
time doing
reading
it myself, but I like reading them myself. Yeah. So my number 3 was the first Guardians of the Galaxy. For much of the same reasons that you did, but mine go a little bit deeper. I had no clue whatsoever when I heard what this movie coming out was supposed to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm like, this better not ruin the momentum that we've created here.
Chris Pratt is just great. Again,
and
he's
Chris
another
Pratt
one I would watch in pretty much any movie. Yeah.
The performance, but it was so unexpected that you could laugh and almost cry a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You could when he
Rocket dance battles. I mean,
when Rocket's holding
emotional.
pieces of Groot after that sacrifice, that was
They
like
give birth to baby Groot. However,
And-
which is,
you're gonna get a lot of flack for that.
Well,
for saying that. All right, you're number 2. We're running a little long. We're gonna try to speed this up a little bit.
yeah. Number 2, Iron Man. The first one. Again, like I said in the open, it brought superhero movies back. Between that and The Dark Knight, it was perfect. The origin of Iron Man was great. Him basically coming out at the end saying, "I'm Iron Man." Perfect. Ironmonger, great villain. He's probably in my top 5 villains of the MCU. Not a lot to choose from, but they fleshed him out. He was a good villain. He had his reasons for wanting Tony out of the picture, and Iron Man came
Well
through.
written, well done.
Yeah, Iron Man came. Jon Favreau, great director.
Terrific.
He did great with both of the direction on both of the first 2. Even though I had my problems with the second one, I think Favreau did a great job.
Definitely.
But yeah, Iron Man is my number 2.
All right, my number 2 is the Winter Soldier. Never a dull moment in my opinion, and I know a lot of people might have a problem with.
I would argue that
thriller.
the whole thing was a dull moment, other than some of the fight scenes.
No, I enjoyed the dialogue. I enjoyed the casting. I enjoyed everything about it. The fight scenes, especially the one on the bridge, and even the one,
The
on the
elevator fight scene was great.
helicarriers in the
I'd
end.
have to
But
say
I don't need to go too far into it. It's just terrific suspense and a lot of twists and turns that you didn't necessarily see coming. You end up empathizing at the end with the title character of the villain, I guess you could say, with the Winter Soldier, and you just kind of know it's foreshadowing a little bit of an alignment between those two coming.
He was coming back for sure.
And how is it hard to dislike? Or I'm sorry, how hard is it to dislike Anthony Mackie? It's impossible.
Yeah, he's right up there. He's up there with Paul Rudd and Chris Pratt.
If you'd have seen his interview with Fallon before going into that movie, he was having more fun than anybody.
Oh
in
yeah,
that,
he's definitely having fun in these movies. He probably knows he's the next Captain America eventually.
And that goes back to your calling back to Guardians of the Galaxy. When you can see people having fun doing these things, it's contagious.
He wanted to be there.
So, you're number 1, sir.
Number uno is Captain America: Civil War. For a lot of the reasons you said. Again, brought everybody together perfectly, except this time opposing each other. The airport fight scene is phenomenal. Black Panther, the first look at Black Panther and just him running through that tunnel.
Yeah.
Whew.
Flying down after Bucky.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to get into some of our favorite scenes, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But and again, introduction of Spider-Man, him taking Cap's shield, he's just the perfect mix of funny in that movie with the action.
A lot of great stuff going on.
Yeah,
a lot of parts you could talk about, and that's why we've left the in our debate about the top scenes, the airport scene is off the table. We know it's the best.
Yeah. It's far and wide, it's the best scene in the entire MCU of everybody getting better, everybody doing their thing, and doing what they're best at.
My top spot is going to go to Avengers, just real quickly here, the first Avengers movie. Anytime you're able to bring a universe worth of superheroes together and have it work the way it did, almost, pretty much seamlessly, and then you have the best villain leading the charge and dealing with his own demons in that right, about basically selling out to Thanos at the end, where you come to learn about this guy, the other, Allison Hannigan's husband from How I Met Your Mother, Sandy Rivers.
Sandy Rivers.
Yeah.
He likes to read the headlines.
He likes to read the headlines. But anyway, the Avengers, my top spot, just terrific all around. One of my favorite scenes is when he basically calls his new suit while he's falling down from Avengers Tower, and he puts it on and almost blows
That's my
away.
number 2 suit. We talked about the suitcase suit earlier, but
okay. Yep.
Suitcase is one.
Mach 7 was that? That was Mach 7?
No idea the Machs.
Anyway.
There's like 50 of them, I think. So
anyway, that will conclude a little bit long-winded, but that's okay because what's wrong with talking about the stuff that you love? But
what better?
Those
thing
are
do you
the
have to do than
rankings.
to keep listening.
That's going to be that segment for the rankings. So when we do this, when we get towards the end, where we tell you about our Twitter handles and we tell you about our email that you can send to us, that we'll be more than happy to respond to in future episodes. That we want to see your list, your top 10, or if you want to do a whole comprehensive list, go right ahead. So we love hearing back. Moving on, now that we have fleshed out our favorite movies and given you a little bit of why we're into this and why some movies matter a little bit more to us than others, we're going to talk about, some of the storylines that help make those and the villains that our favorite heroes had to
villains
endure.
Are important
Very
for
important.
heroes. Heroes are only as good as their villains, Eric.
Exactly.
So we were going to rank the villains, but I think it's kind of pointless because it's Loki and then 16 other people. 15 other people because Loki's in 3 movies. So, yeah, it's Loki. Loki's the best villain.
It's Loki, and it's everybody else after that. It's just a matter of your own personal preference. And honestly, my favorite villains don't even have anything to do with the way that they ranked on my list.
No, I have very little correlation between my villain, because we did do rankings, but we're not going to talk about them because, again, it's Loki and then everybody else. Mm-hmm. I have very little correlation between my favorite villains from the movies versus the actual way I liked the movies.
But it also goes to show you, at least on my list, when you draw those comparisons, I'm just going to throw my 5 in no particular order. Obviously, Loki in the first spot, but
so 4 more then.
4 more
for you math guys out there.
I think the one that had some significance in the overall storyline to me, and I still ended up loving the movie and ranked it number 2, was the combination of Winter Soldier, Alexander Pierce, and Hydra, with Zola being the tape and all that.
I love
Zola.
Those. Zola was probably my favorite villain out of that movie.
But other than that, I actually have no correlation between where I ranked them. Vulture, despite 11...
Well, see, I had some... Before you move on, I had some issues with Winter Soldier in that, just because the movie was hyped up about being as Winter Soldier, and he's not even the main... He's just a patsy in that movie, really. He's just Hydra's errand boy. And, I was hoping to get a lot more Winter Soldiering in the Winter Soldier movie, and it turned into this Robert Redford spy thriller. Just not enough Winter Soldier for me. But
I think they could add more, but I think that there was a lot more.
But he's become a good character as he's grown in the future roles that he's had. His character's become much more fleshed out, and he's better now in hindsight.
I agree with you. Yeah, he's had to become a lot more fleshed out. I just think that there was a lot more of Hydra and the betrayal of Hydra and Pierce to Nick Fury that was left untold. That
boring.
Nope, not to me. Anyway, Vulture, despite Homecoming being 11 on my best movies, Vulture's in my top 5.
Great.
Michael Keaton unreal, man.
You know,
He
it's
always
just your
brings-
natural progression from Batman to Birdman to Vulture.
To
That's
Vulture.
everybody
He just
goes
loves
through
to
that journey
fly.
on their own. Yeah,
He just loves to fly. Ego, the living planet.
I actually liked Ego.
And I think I go back to what I said in the beginning. Casting matters. You can't just throw any brand new hot actress off of some show you just saw.
Jennifer Lawrence.
So you know, you can't just throw
That's an
anybody
allergy
out there. You got to have some relevance, and I think that in these movies, and Marvel's become so big that, hey man, they got a big stick and they can wield it with that checkbook, and if they need to go get somebody, Ego, the Living Planet was going to be played by Kurt Russell, and I think that's when this movie started.
I have Ego ranked highly
some
on
higher hype, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have Ego ranked much higher on my list of villains than I do the actual movie, because Kurt Russell, like you said, he was Ego. Kurt Russell could be a Living Planet, I think. I think he might want to be.
He might want to be.
Yeah,
after this movie.
and he did great. You know, some of my top ones, Vulture, like you said, Ironmonger was one of my favorites. Again, the ones that are more fleshed out go higher on my list. He had his motivations. You know, he had this competition with Tony. He wanted to do things his way, and you know, that big old Iron Man suit that he made, that thing was great. Crashing out, he's left and right.
That was a scary moment when he scared Pepper there. I was scared for Pepper in that scene.
And again, Red Skull. Like I said before, Red Skull, one of my favorite guys. They did a great job in this movie, in the first Captain America, of bringing Red Skull to life. I wish he would be in future ones, but it probably doesn't look like it's going to happen, you know. And
I'd like for more villains to reprise their roles, like they do in the comics.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it's always good to have people back, or recast them. Who cares?
I think, rounding out my 5, though, I have Hela very high on my list.
I had Hela very low.
I had Hela very high.
She's right in the middle.
She looks amazing. I mean,
yeah, they did it. The costume design was great on that.
And I go back to what I said: the casting. I mean, she brought it. Every line, I think she brought it in her own sense, and she made it her own. And I love the way the character was written and how it integrated into the story. And I even really liked the part that she was Thor's long lost sister.
Yeah,
that she actually was the true
they
heir to
brought
the
her in.
Asgardian
They had
throne.
motivation,
So-
and that's the problem with a lot of these villains. When I was doing research for this, you know, I had to look up some of these guys' names. I couldn't remember who the villains were. From Doctor Strange, Caecilius. I knew the plot of it, but I couldn't remember his name for the life of what they named that character. Yellow Jacket, same thing. I knew it was a guy in a yellow suit with the talent. Yeah, Darren Cross.
Darren Cross.
I remembered that part of it, but I didn't remember that they called him Yellow Jacket, because honestly,
they called the suit the Yellow Jacket.
Yeah, I don't know that. Did they ever say it in the movie?
He was never physically
Like, he wasn't
called. I
the
don't believe.
Yellow Jacket?
I could be wrong.
Yeah, so it's hard when the villains don't resonate as much, because you're just they're a means to an end for a lot of these movies. It's like, we have a superhero, so they have to fight someone. Let's throw somebody in there. And coming back to Doctor Strange, they had Dormammu also, and
You did not like
no, I just don't feel like they did the character justice, because Dormammu can do anything, and he's got these errand boys and Caecilius and his little gang running around doing things. I come from a background, like I said, of watching all the old cartoons in the 90s, which in the Spider-Man cartoon, Dormammu played a big part of in one season. And, you know, they just did so much more with him. Dormammu is this... he's a demon that can do anything he wants, and they stick him in a time loop, and he's a big floating head. I mean...
How much did they really
has
do?
a body.
Do you think that there will be a return?
Yeah, I think
future
Dormammu's going to end up helping Thanos in some way, just because he is such an important part of Marvel, and he can do so much. And he's a big floating head. It's the same thing with Galactus, how they ruined him, and in the Green Lantern movie with I don't remember his name either, but they just had a big floating cloud there too. I don't get why Floating Cloud became this is a big villain. You're a floating cloud or a floating head. Like,
I think
give this person a body.
Yeah, lack of creativity, in my opinion. And I don't want to call those guys, not creative. They didn't get to where they were to make those decisions for nothing. But
But there's a reason
they're so popular in the comics.
screenwriters.
There's a reason they're popular in the comics, and you want to see that justice be done on the screen. Sometimes it doesn't work out as well
and
as you want
I think it comes from trying to ground these things in reality, and superheroes aren't grounded in reality. Like, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Stick it out there. Like,
Don't
these guys are
go
flying
expecting
around.
to
This
see
guy's got a
realism.
surfboard that he's flying around on. I mean, come on. Just have fun.
You can't go to those movies expecting to be realists.
No.
I don't agree with that stance, and I think you're wasting your money if you're looking for
The only one that
something
has
real.
pulled it off is The Dark Knight.
Yes.
And
yes.
The Dark Knight Returns to it. And they did that, and they only pulled it off because of the other people involved, with Ledger and
still
Hardy.
the
and
only superhero
Nolan
movie
in
to
there.
get
Yeah.
an acting Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was posthumously for
Yeah.
Ledger, but I mean, he deserved it.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, but that's still the only superhero movie. That tells you the relevance of that film. But yeah, so the villain doesn't necessarily have to correlate to it being one of my favorite movies.
No.
You just got to put some stakes out there, and even if it's not great, if I have fun watching you, like I have with Hella,
some
like
of
I have
the
with
better
Vulture.
villains are from the Netflix shows, really. I mean,
Oh,
you've got Kingpin
Vincent
in there.
D'Onofrio.
Yeah, he did great as Kingpin. Kilgrave was good.
Was great. Mahershala Ali played a terrific. I was so
I was
mad when they killed him off.
Yeah. Because Diamondback Cottonmouth was way better than Diamondback.
Cottonmouth was so much more devious than Diamondback. Let's see. We can flesh that out a little bit more, in the future as far as the TV line. Because we're going to do a little TV episode, I think. Yeah. A little something deserving for it.
Yeah.
Really, really shed some light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about what we liked out of villains. Let's talk a little bit about the scenes, individual scenes from the movies that we liked. Again, we said earlier when we were talking about Civil War that airport scene is probably the best scene across the MCU, just because
no doubt
everyone's there doing their thing and
100%.
being great at it. What's one of your favorite scenes, just individual scenes from one of the movies?
Sometimes these individual scenes, it's like they burn into your memory.
Yeah,
and you
burn.
just memory burn.
That's rough.
They burn into your memory as the pivotal moments that made you decide whether you like it or whether you don't. And it could be something as little as watching Iron Man put on his suitcase suit in Monaco, like I mentioned before.
Peter Quill turning into Pac-Man. I mean, come on.
Peter Quill turning into Pac-Man. I wasn't. To be honest with you, as much as I love this movie. As much as I love that movie, it wasn't my favorite part. Anyway, I thought the Winter Soldier bridge or freeway fight where they spill out into the neighborhood below and, they use a diversion to kind of, team up against the Winter Soldier. That hand-to-hand combat between Cap and even between Scarlett Johansson and the Winter Soldier, just terrific choreography, a great way to flesh that all out. I thought, in my opinion, it was unbelievable.
I agree. That was a great scene. That one got ruined for me a little bit because it was season 1 or 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They did a sneak peek kind of thing during one of the commercials, and they did the whole Nick Fury part of that scene. So when he's driving and gets flipped over and all that, I think the sneak peek stopped right when Winter Soldier showed up. So it was like they kind of ruined his introduction through that sneak peek, and that's kind of why I've sworn off I'll watch the first trailer that comes out, and then after that I try not to watch anything else because I'm kind of sick of these movies getting ruined.
You're more disciplined than I am, but I'm going to talk about that down the line as we progress. We got a couple of bones to pick with the way they market these things.
Yeah. So I'm glad you bring Winter Soldier back up because that's got one of my favorite scenes when Cap throws his shield at the Winter Soldier and he just sticks his arm out and nabs that thing out of the air like he's Odell Beckham Jr. or something out there.
Oh crap moment.
Yeah, that was just great to see the raw strength of his shoulder because, this guy's not any stronger. Well, I guess he had the super soldier formula, but he's got that arm that he can stop the vibranium shield. A
little bit of an advantage.
Yep.
So. And
that was just so cool the first time you see him catch that shield, and I was really hoping for more of that in that movie,
I think for my second scene, if I had to think about something, reason that I liked the Guardians number 1 the first time was the way their arrest to their booking to their incarceration and
Yeah.
how they all were sort of lumped in together randomly, somehow, each after the same little MacGuffin, but they all end up in the same cell and they kill them
Not always
together.
how it goes.
But the music, the way it was shot, just terrifically done, and that's when I knew I was having fun.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Great
of course
fun.
it was
Great
funny at first when you got Rocket calling a little kid a gargoyle, see Stan Lee hitting on a much younger woman. There's these little laugh moments, but this is where I started really having fun, and
Yeah,
I
that scene
started
really
to buy it.
cemented who each of the characters
Yeah.
was.
A bunch of a-holes.
Yeah, and my next scene that I would say is one of my favorites is the in the first Iron Man when he makes that escape in his Mach 1 suit, just destroying all those 10 Rings guys in this crap he put together in a cave. It was just great seeing Iron Man take shape for the first time, really, and that's that goes back to my roots
Legendary.
as a superhero fan and just getting to watch that happen. And anytime you see one of your favorite characters on the big screen for the first time is great.
I completely agree. Wasn't in my top 3 or anything like that, and I don't even know if these are my top 3, to be honest with you. There's so many
These
that
are
I
just
could
like the
draw
3
from.
best we could think
The
of.
3
at the
best I
time,
could think of when we're going through our little pregame.
I just changed one of mine because I thought it was
I
a better
don't know
one
if you
as we were
heard him.
talking.
I don't know if you heard him typing, but in the background. But he was literally changing one of his scenes, and I am actually going to reference the scene he deleted with the scene I'm about to.
Yeah.
When they do that first wraparound of all 6 Avengers in the middle of the street in the first Avengers movie, as the as the Chitauri are running around the whole city and stuff, and they're kind of figuring out what they're going to do. That is a dramatic moment. That was absolutely. I mean, that's the reason you go.
Yeah.
That shot right there is
Get
the
them all
reason
working
you went
together
to the
for
theater.
the first time. And we talked about this earlier. It was a great scene. I liked the one in Avengers Age of Ultron better when they were all
I
stuck
was going to
in
reference
the,
that,
yeah.
but I'm going to let you since it was your idea.
They were all in the little Coliseum kind of thing, and all the Ultron bots are swarming around them.
What a great way to shoot that, though.
Right,
They're
yeah.
all happen to be crossing over that fence at the same time
Yeah,
in their
and
own
they're
way.
all doing their magic powers and whatnot, and lightning bolts are coming.
Fun stuff.
Yeah,
Fun
fun,
stuff.
definitely fun stuff. And so
What's your last?
I guess we'll call that 2B.
Yeah.
But number 3 was the Black Panther tunnel chase in Civil War after the delegates from Wakanda were just blown up by not Bucky Barnes. He chases after Cap and Winter Soldier on foot while they're on motorcycles and in cars, and you can just see the way they shot it to show Black Panther's speed. And
all
with
3 of their speed.
Yeah,
I don't think you quite grasped how fast either Cap or Bucky
Right.
was until you saw that scene, and then you're just like, oh, they're really freaking super soldiers.
But the way they shot it, you could hear kind of the wind whipping past Black Panther a little bit more because the vibranium suit is so dense, not dense.
Okay.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
know what you're
Because of
getting
the
at, I just don't know how
vibranium
to say
suit,
it.
he
I'm not-
cut through. He was more aerodynamic, basically, than those guys because of his suit.
I think the speed they displayed in that scene also was like a silent indicator of just why Cap had to A, save Bucky, but B, go after Zemo and his attempt to possibly, it didn't end up being that way, but possibly reactivating those super soldiers. Because there was about to be 5 or 6 more of those guys just as badass.
That 3 people in the world could have stopped.
Exactly. So I think it gave some silent stakes that they didn't have to address verbally. But once you saw what they were capable of, having 5 more people on this planet like that might have wreaked some havoc. Transitioning, though, to what we're excited for coming up. I mean, we talked about all the past. We want to talk about a little bit what we're excited for. And obviously, there's about 4 movies we can name off the top of our heads. And it's the same 4 movies that you're going to say as you're sitting in your car or on your headphones or whatever. Okay, Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Captain Marvel. And then eventually Avengers 4. But we're excited for those. I think the most excited part about it for me, or exciting part about it for me, is that, I think the time is gone for Marvel to care about the casual viewer. Anytime pretty much any one of your movies churns out $1 billion, when you're talking 10
Yeah,
figures,
you can tell they're getting a little weirder with their plot. Like they're letting.
They don't care that you
They're
haven't
playing
seen
with
it.
their characters a little more. Yeah.
They don't care that you haven't seen it. They don't, as everything is so accessible nowadays with, you don't have to go back and forth to Blockbuster to rent every single one of these movies.
Yeah,
you don't
and they're
have
not
to
worried that
go to the
you
Red
didn't
Box
see the
anymore.
first Thor.
That's
if you're
my
coming
point.
into Black Panther. I got you.
They're not worried about that anymore. Admittedly, they were at first, and it was a little rudimentary at first.
And
but-
they were trying to throw in these. Remember this guy from this time?
Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
Kind of scenes.
And I think you're getting a better. More detailed film, a more detailed description of these
And
characters.
early
and
on,
the way
they had
operate.
to shoehorn in a lot of references
Yeah.
to the other characters. You're sitting in a Thor movie, and you've got Agent Coulson saying, "Well, we can't call Tony for this," in every time. Like,
Yeah, you
in
can't
the first,
remind
before
Thor viewers.
Avengers, before the first Avengers movie, that it was like they had to do those scenes every time.
Mm-hmm.
Of hey, remember guys, these other 6 films exist. They don't have to do that anymore. Everybody
And
knows.
that's probably the part I like about these newer movies the most, and why some of them rank
Is they're
still
just they're
fairly
just movies,
highly.
and they're just good movies.
Yeah.
The movie I'm most excited for out of these upcoming 4 is definitely Black Panther, and I think you're going to disagree with me, but that trailer, the first trailer for Black Panther, is just
The
awesome.
music is fantastic.
They got that Vince Staples song on there that just kills.
Run the
and,
Jewels.
and yeah, it's just amazing, and I'm very excited. You got
Run the Jewels was the first trailer. Vincent Staples was the second one.
well, that's the one. You're
That's-
talking about the teaser versus the actual theatrical. I'm talking about the first theatrical trailer.
Okay.
Anyways, they're all great, and the movie looks great.
I mean, what we're nitpicking now.
Yeah. You got Michael B. Jordan in there as the villain,
Oh,
and
I'm a little disappointed that he's not going to play the Torch. I guess if they're going to bring back Fantastic Four.
yeah, those guys are good.
I
Those
love-
4 are done.
It's a terrible movie. I love those actors.
Yeah, they were.
I love those actors.
That was the one shining. I could have done without Kate Mara.
Maybe.
she's
yeah,
hit or miss
I give it
for
to
me.
you. But I'm a big Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan guy.
Yep, those 2 are great
And
together.
I did watch Turn with the actor who played Thing. His name is slipping my mind right now. But
I don't
he was
know
on a
what movie you're
show
talking
called
about.
Turn, and it was about the
I know the
American
actor. The
Revolution.
actor's good,
George
yeah.
Washington's Ring of Spies that helped him win the Revolutionary War.
Sounds-
Check it out. If you like American history, go do that.
Thought I was a nerd. But yeah, the Black Panther just looks amazing, and I can't wait for it. Infinity War looks good. We just got the first trailer for that recently.
Oh,
It
we
looks
could
good.
Spend another hour breaking
Yeah.
that thing down.
Yeah,
but
it
I
looks
imagine all
good.
of you've seen it by now.
Or if you haven't, you
Should.
tell me where the rock you're living under is.
Yeah,
I'll send it
'cause-
to you.
Maybe we could use a vacation every once in a while.
But we also, we also got Deadpool 2 coming up soon. That's not technically MCU yet, but
No, I know this is an MCU podcast, but I think you got to give
Cable
Ryan
coming
Reynolds.
in there, and
You got to give him some due and what he's been able to do with that
I
character.
like this.
One thing we didn't.
Domino is the villain.
Zazie Beetz. She's
Zazie Beetz
fantastic.
from Atlanta. Yep.
So one thing I think we didn't really get to was Ryan Reynolds in Origins.
In the Green Lantern.
In Origins Wolverine.
Great
And how so many
CGI
people
suit there.
had a problem with that, but I think it kind of laid the foundation 8 years early that
Well, since that, he's
he
been
was
working
meant
on
to
making
play
this
Wade
Deadpool.
Wilson.
Yeah,
so
he came from a place of he always loved that character of Deadpool, which at the time Origins came out, a lot of people didn't know. I didn't know Deadpool was a character, so it didn't bother me that he was butchered.
many comic book
Since
fans.
I've learned what Deadpool is,
Yeah.
I can see how he was butchered, but I mean, you can't sew the work with a mouth shut.
Yeah,
mouth
you can't
shut.
do that. So many comic book fans knew for a fact that a Ryan Reynolds-led Deadpool movie with the suit, with the profanity, with the gore, just making a real Deadpool product. How could so many fans be right and so many executives be wrong for so long?
I think people would find that if they listen to their fans a little better,
Yeah,
they
like
might
Marvel's
find that,
fans.
they might
like
find that a
the
little more.
MCU fans. So it just goes to show you, trust the people that know this stuff. Executives out there, trust those people. I'm not one of the people that knows everything about it. Maybe my co-broadcaster
Yeah.
here, that Cal, I forgot his name. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so essentially, really excited for Deadpool 2. Really excited to see Josh Brolin again,
Yeah.
as Cable.
Yeah, I think Cable's going to kill it. I think Domino's going to be great. Zazie Beetz, like we said, she was in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Great. And then we got Captain Marvel coming up. That's going to be. I'm excited to see.
I'm a big Brie Larson fan.
Marvel? Yeah, I like her.
Nick Fury with two eyes.
Yeah, it's going to be set in the 90s, which is cool. A lot of nostalgia for me. I was a child of the 90s, as it were.
I still don't know a whole lot about the Kree Skrull War. The Skrulls are something that's a little foreign to me right now.
Secret invasion going on, maybe, and the Agents
please
of S.H.I.E.L.D., I heard.
don't break my heart and make Tony Stark end up being a Skrull this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a real
I
big
think they've come too far. If in Avengers 4 that's their way to reset it, saying it was the secret invasion, that's going to be a little rough on some people.
That'll be like Mandarin level Iron Man 3, hypocrisy there.
And then we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Again, Paul Rudd. I hope he's just folding laundry, because I would watch that.
Well, he's probably folding really small laundry. That
could be. Or it could be big now, because he's also giant man.
True. Very true. Do you think he does that in the city, though? He'd be like, just out in the open? He's just going to turn into... No. Talking about Deadpool, and we've mentioned the X-Men several times, I think it's time to address the rumor/now reality that Disney has managed to come to an agreement with Fox for their intellectual properties and those characters that were sold off a while ago. Apparently, it is exciting. It's just that I want to temper people's expectations. And I have a few reasons why. And I'm going to thank Screen Rant. They wrote a great article this morning. That's where I was able to get a lot of my flashpoints from. But, this deal is for reported $52.4 billion. That's with a
lot
B.
of quiche.
A lot of quiche. It includes, among the TV properties like Family Guy, American Dad, The Simpsons. Entire catalog is there. The deal
this is interesting. I just thought of this.
What's that?
Gotham on Fox. DC property. How's that going to work? They're going to transition that over to the CW?
Well, since it's owned by DC, I would venture to guess that's probably not on the table. This deal. So
we'll just have to see how that plays itself out.
All of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Deadpool, and even like the upcoming Avatar sort of universe that James Cameron's wanting to create, that's all going to be under the Disney umbrella now.
I went to Disney World recently and saw the new Avatar Pandora area in the Animal Kingdom. It's pretty great.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Disney in a long time.
I'm waiting for the Star Wars world next year.
I'm waiting for them to get a little bit more of a Marvel touch on that park, to be honest with you.
Might be coming soon.
There's no Fox News, no Fox national Fox Sports. I think the regional sports go over to Disney, and the studio lots themselves obviously aren't under Disney control. But I think this is more in anticipation of the Disney streaming service comparable to Netflix, and just creating a great back catalog of content to put on there to make it so people actually leave
extra
Netflix.
$12.
To make maybe people actually leave Netflix or Hulu, go over to this new Disney platform.
Well, Disney has a lot of content also for these, what do you call them, the smallish people. They've got a lot of content for
children.
Those guys. Yes.
Children, I lost the word there.
So I don't think Disney's lacking for content, but in a content universe, I think it's going to be important that they have as much as possible.
Having Lucasfilm is one thing. When you've got 10 films, going to be 11 after it's all said and done. And as much of the animated content, and you even have a comic book universe with it, that's a big thing. Don't get me wrong. So the Star Wars is a big thing.
Huge.
But Marvel has more films. Marvel has more content and more characters than you might even be able to imagine. And so grabbing this now,
there are a lot of mutants out there,
trying to get their hands on these X-Men now instead of opening up that service. And
it's a really good time to grab them because this, I guess it's going to be 4 movies. This new iteration of X-Men, beginning with First Class and Dark Phoenix is the next one and probably last. I only went to the theaters. I don't think I went to any of them.
I did.
But I was getting married and having kids at that time, so it was a little rough. Yeah. But I did enjoy them. I didn't enjoy Apocalypse so much, but it's ending with Dark Phoenix here, I think, and that's going to be a good point for them to transition over to start something new.
Sansa's going to be playing Jean Grey going forward.
She might, but
because I like her.
She might,
and
but
I love the McAvoy and Fassbender.
I think they'll be out.
You think they're?
I
out?
think
You
those
think
two
they're
are going to
gonna
be
reboot
out.
those
Yep, I
characters?
think Jennifer Lawrence is out because she's wanted to be out
She's
since
gonna be out
about the
for a while.
first one.
And I'm okay with that.
I don't like Jennifer Lawrence. Not a
even
fan.
To each their own. But
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're going to try and do something new with everyone there.
Okay.
If anyone stays, it would be her because as Dark Phoenix, she has the power to reset
still
the
very,
world,
very young.
obviously. So she would still be a part of that world if they chose. And
Also, Maisie Williams is going to be in the New Mutants.
Yeah, the New Mutants,
New
which is
Mutants,
just a
so-
horror movie. So I'm a little torn between
No,
seeing it
I'm
because I
going to
don't
see
like
that.
horror
I don't like
movies.
horror films either, but I will go see that because it looks.
I
like
might
a great
watch it
take
on a Sunday afternoon with all the lights on.
Good point. But anywho, if you're planning on seeing any of these characters in Avengers 4, the possibility is really,
That's
really
probably
low.
not going to happen. Maybe
It's
Avengers
very, very.
5.
I can't say no because you got to think that Kevin Feige's been preparing for this mentally for
Yeah.
quite some time, and now that it's a reality, he might be able to pull the trigger on a few integration related things. But this could take up to 18 months to close this deal. So we'll already almost be close to Captain Marvel by the time this deal actually becomes official, because they do have to go through all the legalities and litigation that are tied into giant companies merging together. I mean, I use the AT&T Time Warner merger as an example of that. I know some of
Great example. Great example.
But anyways, they try to prevent monopolies and all that kind of stuff. So in case it doesn't go through, Disney's on the hook for $2.5 billion to Fox. And if either side decides to pull out, it's another $1.5 billion for each. So don't expect to see like Deadpool or Wolverine, or Charles Xavier trying to get into Thanos' head come Avengers 4. It's not. I can definitively say, I don't know if anybody else can, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I think there's a chance. I think
share
maybe
this
they're
screen.
planning for this. They were planning for this eventuality, and they can stick some. They won't be the main characters by any means, but they can search for help.
I just don't
Maybe
know how
they might get their
introduce
help
mutants.
denied, but they go see the X-Men, and the X-Men say, we don't want to deal with that.
I just don't know how
We already
they're
took
gonna,
down Apocalypse. We're good.
I don't know how they're going to introduce it. To be honest, you're not going to call them Inhumans after that debacle.
No, let's stay away from the Inhumans.
Yeah,
Twice
so-
they debacled it.
Yeah. So they couldn't get the movie off the ground, and even though there's 8 episodes, the show isn't off the ground either by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't think it's getting to season 2.
For the Inhumans?
Oh,
No. Well, and they
God.
tried to introduce it in S.H.I.E.L.D., and it just didn't take. People want the X-Men. They don't want the Inhumans.
Yeah, people want the X-Men, and I know the Inhumans because the whole Fox thing looked like a pipe dream, that it was never going to happen.
Right,
And
they
so
had to
that's
have-
when they knew they had to go in that
They had to have
direction.
something
Their
to
backup
get some
plan.
supernatural powers in there.
So
They couldn't all just be experimented on like Scarlet Witch. And that pretty much wraps up what we had to talk about with the MCU. At the end of each pod, we want to do something. We're going to call it the 2-minute ISO. We're basically just going to each take 2 minutes to go into as much detail as we can in 2 minutes on something that's either been bothering us or something that we liked this week, or since the last time we got together and did this. So it's just 2 minutes for each of us to take the reins and talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. Not necessarily relating to the rest of the show.
mine will relate today. Won't always, but mine will relate today. But mine is going to be about the 17 movie trailers, and somehow, some way, as clandestine and as secretive as Kevin Feige and everyone at Marvel can be, to the point where it's a running joke, punchline, that Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland constantly spoil things. And they are you going to get in trouble for it? Are you getting in trouble for saying that, for leaking that? Well, how in the heck does Lego get clearance to?
They do it a lot with
to
Star
write
Wars.
these-
It's not
to
just
write
the
these
MCU. They do it with
story
Star Wars a lot
descriptions.
too.
It's an ISO, Cal. To write these little descriptions
That just means you pick the topic. You don't get to talk the whole time.
that may or may not, and it looks like it may, these descriptions that mirror scenes from the movie.
Yep.
That we don't see in any
we
of the
haven't seen
trailers.
yet, yep.
And we're 5 months away, 6 months away from this film, and, well, 5. We're 5 months away from this film, and we already know, if you read the Legos descriptions, how the final battle is going to go down.
I don't read a lot of Lego descriptions. It's not what I do with my
But
time
if you
in
really
Toy
wanted
Story.
to dig, you could.
Right.
And if you are
some
a
people like
podcast
that.
listener like
Yeah.
you all out there, I'm willing to bet this isn't the first Marvel-related podcasts you've tapped play for, and there might be somebody out there discussing them there. So you might even know what it is I'm talking about. But I really can't understand how Marvel gives Lego the clearance to almost spoil certain scenes. Given that they're childlike descriptions, you still get it because the toys are very detailed in themselves.
Right.
So it's with the character placements that they do.
They do it with Star Wars a lot too. There's been some thought that Finn's identity was spoiled by one of the Star Wars Lego play sets. I understand where you're coming from, and there's always 3 trailers and 5 different TV spots that they do, sneak peeks, all that, and you just get so much information before you go in, and it's like, well, why am I watching the movie? You see it a lot with comedies. These new comedies these days,
trailer.
There's 6 genuinely funny parts, and they're all in the trailer. So definitely, why'd you go see the movie? That's good.
Yeah, see, I just, it's like I said, I'm okay with having a couple of trailers, 2-minute spots or whatever.
Right.
Even if you overlap scenes that you show me in there. I get that marketing is marketing and you've got to have it plastered everywhere. You got to figure out how to integrate Iron Man 3 with the NBA Finals or some stuff like that. But, but, I get that it has to be everywhere. You don't have to show me so much. You could show it to me in a different order, and you don't have to show me so much.
Well, with the internet, it's all up on YouTube. Even if I don't watch that TV show that it was on, it's on YouTube the next day.
I lack the willpower to not click it or search for it on YouTube. So save me from myself and stop giving me all this content.
Exactly. Can't be trusted.
So, Cal, what are we going to expect in?
So my 2 minutes, I'm going to dedicate to the future of a podcast about something. This is our first episode, if you couldn't tell by how rusty we are.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I don't know if rusty because we were
you
never
didn't turn
clean.
us off.
Oh yeah, hope you're still listening. If you're not, you don't know we're doing this anyways. So, but yeah, I'm going to talk about that. We have an email address that you can contact us through. It's a podcast about something at gmail.com. Pretty simple. Twitter handle is at APA something, or you can find us. It's the full Twitter name is a podcast about something. So we're out there on the networks. Might be a little harder to find us if this whole new net neutrality thing is going away, like it looks like it is. And
that's a whole other discussion for a different day.
We hope that comes back soon.
Call your senators, ladies and gentlemen. Call your senators.
And so that we're gonna go into a wide variety of topics. We're gonna talk movies in general. We're gonna talk specific movies we like. We're gonna talk television in general, specific TV shows we like. We're going to talk sports. Both Eric and I are big sports fans. I think we can agree that football is our favorite sport.
Indeed.
But basketball is right up there. We'll do a lot on that. World Cup time comes around. We may jump on that.
The only time we'll talk soccer, but I love it when the World Cup
no USA in the World Cup, so it might be a little harder for us to get into it.
We might have to wait 4 years to do that.
Probably not a lot of hockey.
Years down the road?
Not a lot of hockey content from us.
Only if the Blackhawks are doing good. I'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, but I won't. So you'll have to use your 2-minute ISO for your Blackhawks stuff. We'll call that hockey corner for that time of the year. But it's just going to be a fun time. We're going to be going over everything that's going on in the world. We'd love to hear suggestions for topics or feedback on anything at our email at the aforementioned email address or Twitter handle.
Beat us up verbally if you want to tweet at us directly. If our personal accounts, we'll put those in our bio.
Yep. I would prefer that you don't beat us up. Just be nice. Be nice to us. We're nice guys for the most part.
For the most part.
Eric more than me probably, but we're nice.
That is true.
So it's going to be like this. We're just going to run through topics. Every show is going to be about something. We just don't know what yet. Our next one, we're going to do a podcast about football, so stay tuned on that. And we're going to be covering everything: college football, pro football, fantasy football, maybe a little Canadian football.
No
Canadian
Canadians
football.
don't even like Canadian football. I know that from Canadians.
And NFL Europe, maybe XFL. We'll see what we can go in.
We're done here.
And that's all we got for you today. Eric's cutting me off, so we will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. This was fun.
But mostly stay classy.